Hey everybody, welcome back. Or hopefully this is your first time on the channel and we caught your attention because today we want to talk mainly to the people who are not reptile keepers. Folks that, maybe see so many of the videos online showing folks working with their snakes and are just like, you're terrified of them, you don't know how we can do it. Any number of reasons, but you may not understand why we enjoy working with these animals so much. So we're going to spend some time today. We're going to talk about why we do it. We're going to talk about how we do it, and we're going to talk about a couple reasons why you may not need to be quite as afraid of these animals as you may have been led to believe through your life. So you won't want to go anywhere. We'll be right back on Intrepid Exotics. Whether you're a lifelong keeper or just getting started, help us encourage responsible keeping, conservation, and public education in the interest of keeping our reptiles safe and healthy as we protect them for future generations. You're invited to spend time with us as we experience these awesome animals together on Intrepid Exotics. Now, it should be a really fun discussion today. And I've got my little girl, Athena, here. She is a Burmese python. She's going to help us talk about this today. And I used her because I think with non-snake folks, Burmese pythons are probably the most familiar. And people typically think about them because of the invasive problem down in Florida. You see so many videos around that, they show the snake hunts down there, show people chasing them down and grabbing them by the neck and fighting them and trying to get the biggest one and so forth. Well, there's a whole other side to these animals that most people don't see. And it's a side that those of us that keep and raise these animals are just completely in love with and absolutely adore working with these animals. And it seems counterintuitive to a lot of people. And one of the things that motivated me to make this is I was down at the VA today, had a doctor's appointment down there. And the RN, we were sitting there talking, and the topic of reptiles came up. I was just really interested and what got me started and why I work with him and stuff. He said that he was, he'd been afraid of snakes his whole life. And it's a conversation that we have pretty commonly because in the outside world, most people aren't familiar with them. And, and you'll have to excuse me. She has got a lot of energy. She just ate not too long ago. So once they start getting their meals digested, they get that energy and all the calories and stuff in there, so they like to move around quite a bit during that whole period of time. And she's no exception to that. But I'm going to try my best to do this without any edits. So, to stay on topic. And of course, if this is something that interests you, if you want to see more of it, we've got like almost 200 videos out right now. All pertaining to snake handling and stuff, working with everything from our small snakes like this to our big reticulated pythons that are over 16 feet long, plus our monitor lizards and so forth. So there's all kinds of stuff on handling and socializing the animals, because here we really try to help folks that are getting started to really understand and just have better relationships with their animals. Now, this girl came to me fresh out of the egg, and she's a perfect example of the difference between a wild snake that you're going to see, a wild Burmese that you may see in the Everglades, and a captive bred animal. Most of the snakes that you see us working with, they've been bred in captivity. These guys will throw 20, 30, 40 egg clutches. And all those animals are raised for generations. And, we've got many generations of these snakes that are bred. And the longer you breed them into captivity, the more accustomed to human contact they get, the more docile they become. And there's some things that we'll go into that we've got to pay attention to, some instinctual things that are a little bit different from snakes than, say, dogs, for instance. But it's really simple stuff, and it's just really paying attention to the animals and getting to know them, which is something that we do, after keeping these animals for years and years. This is a really young girl, probably 2 to 3 years old right now. And you know, these Burmese pythons will get 14, 16, sometimes 18 feet. They get pretty big. And we've also got some reticulated pythons downstairs that are over 16 feet long, over 80 pounds of animal. So it's really, really important when we're teaching fellow keepers and so forth to, you know, really learn to read your behavior and kind of know what it is that's going on in their heads. But we spend a lot of time doing that, and we understand it's kind of alien for folks that don't mess with these animals at all. This one, just like almost all of my snakes, I never worry about getting bit. Once they're out of their enclosures, they've got what's called a food response. You know, they are ambush predators by nature, so they will lay in wait for a heat signature, for movement. You know, these animals can detect. They can, you know, they've got little heat pits right here, so she can feel the heat coming off of my hand. That tongue that's coming out, she's picking up scent particles, and that tongue, it's forked, so they can kind of tell which direction it's coming from. It goes out, they pick up those small little scent particles, it comes back. There's a Jacobson's organ that identifies it, much like, you know, all our olfactory system. And that split in the tongue, it'll pick up differences and kind of lead them in the direction that they're following. So they've got a really sophisticated sensory system. Some people think that because they don't have external ears, they can't hear, but they actually do have ears. They've got the inner ear bones, they just don't have the external openings. So they can hear, they can feel vibrations. Exactly how much they hear or to what degree, we're not 100% sure, but they've got a unique feature in there as well, where one of their ear bones actually has fused over time, and it connects to their lower jawbone. So what are you doing? So as you can imagine, you know, those same inner ear bones are what we use to hear with, except we've got the external ears and we've got the eardrums. They've got that, plus they've got it attached to their lower jaw, so when they're on the ground, as you can imagine, they're really sensitive to vibrations and stuff. So they're not completely deaf, as some people would think, and are also not slimy. Like a lot of people, you'll hear that all the time. Oh man, I'm surprised they're not slimy. Well, they're smooth, you know, just because of their scales. And there's different snakes will have different scales. Like this Burmese python is a really smooth scale snake, so you'll see them looking really shiny. They might look like they're wet, but in all actuality they're not. Other snakes like rattlesnakes and hognose and stuff like that will have keeled scales, so they'll be a lot rougher to the touch, and it won't reflect light the same way. And I'm sure people are familiar with that, they've seen that. But something to remember with these guys is that when you see the videos of people out chasing them, hunting them, all of that stuff, and you know, you see them coming up to them, or you see them grabbing them by the neck, you're seeing that animal in its most vulnerable state, its least happy state, if we can put it like that. You know, these animals are fighting for their life. They're afraid they're going to die. So of course they're going to look vicious. They're going to look like they're putting up a fight, because they are. And when you're out in the wild, you know, if you're looking at if you're out walking around, you encounter a snake and it rears up and it's, you know, feigning, striking at you and stuff like that. Yeah, that snake's terrified of you. These things, Clint Laidlaw with Clint's Reptiles puts it best, I think. You know, life is scary when you're a noodle with a head. And as a general rule, most snakes have more predators than they have prey. Now when you get into the bigger snakes like the reticulated pythons, Burmese, rock pythons, the anacondas, once these animals are getting up over 100 pounds, there's not too much that's really going to take them down, because they get incredibly powerful. Even my 16-footers, they're not considered big, but they are still very powerful animals. It's really impressive just interacting with these guys like that. But like I said, when we see these animals in the wild and they're putting up a fight, they're putting up a front, they're trying to scare you away, you know, that's their natural response to a predator. When you watch them and they're not engaged in a situation like that and they're just out roaming, they're the most calm, relaxed animals you'll ever see. It's their natural wild disposition is really curious and really calm. You know, they're cold-blooded animals, and cold-blooded animals are masters at conserving energy. So they're really good at it. And when they're not being threatened, you'll see them just moving around really slow, checking everything out. And that's our goal when we bring these into captivity. When we breed them into captivity or bring them in, our goal is to let them have that wild state of mind all the time. And that's what they do. This girl right here, the way she's behaving right now, is the way she would be behaving if she was out in the wild and not being threatened and just cruising around, maybe looking for food, maybe looking for a new place to den up, maybe looking for some heat. This is how they act in the wild. And the reason why she's not scared, the reason why she's not thrashing and biting at me and so forth, is because this animal's learned to trust me. She knows that I'm not a threat. It's one thing that a lot of people that don't keep these animals don't get to see is the intelligence. You know, these animals that will recognize keepers. They can differentiate between different people. You can see it somewhat with her when you get down to my older retics. Reticulated pythons are among the smartest snakes alive. Any of us that keep those animals, retics, which is what we call reticulated pythons, are really known for their intelligence. Very smart animals. And like I said, it's just a side of them that most people don't get to see until you work with them for a while. And our whole process of working with these animals is simply getting them to trust us. As soon as we do that, and as soon as they realize that we're not a threat, the biting stops. You know, as you can see, this, you know, they don't have eyelids, so you can't look down necessarily and see that she's asleep. But this is an incredibly comfortable animal right here. She trusts me. She knows I've never hurt her before, never gonna hurt her. She knows that when she sees me, something good's gonna happen. She's either gonna get food, or she's gonna get out and get to explore, or any number of things like that. And we've got a pretty good relationship in that respect. And it's the same way it is with all of my animals, all the way up to my 6-foot Nile monitor lizard. Nile monitors are known for being really, really aggressive, and that's a term that I don't use with very many reptiles because aggressive doesn't really suit it. It's defensive. They're defensive because they're frightened. My Nile monitor can be aggressive. Those are African monitors. They've got a lot of natural predators, and they've got to fight constantly in their natural habitat, so they're naturally pretty ready to fight. Snakes, on the other hand, very rare do you see one that you can't really work through and build a relationship with. And I've had thousands of interactions with hundreds, if not thousands, of snakes. Some of them over 22 feet and over 200 pounds. Just some massive, powerful animals. And to be able to have that relationship with them, and it really is a relationship. You know, they know us, they trust us, we know them, we trust them, and you know, that two-way street is what makes all this stuff possible. When this girl grows up, you know, if she grows up to be a 200-pound, 18-foot snake, you know, one of the massive berms that you see, then we're going to interact the same way. Except for the fact that, you know, I'm not going to have her hanging around my neck and holding her quite so much, because that gets hard on the back. Even my 80-pound snakes, they can be a struggle to maneuver around sometimes. But for those of you guys that don't don't have any experience working with these animals and just don't understand how we can do it, you know, this is the side of it that a lot of people don't really see. You know, we don't have to fight these guys. They're not sizing us up to see if they can eat us. I can go downstairs and lay in the enclosure with my 80-pound reticulated python, and neither one of them are going to try and eat me. That's just not a thing. Yeah, it's just one of the myths out there. And you'll see, you know, you'll see some videos sometimes. There's some that get a lot of views. They show, you know, kids interacting with them and so forth. And, you know, not only have the snakes been socialized and they know to trust people, they differentiate them, you know, between what's a person and what's food. You know, they just, and like I said, it can be kind of difficult to explain sometimes to folks that haven't worked with these animals. But as you can see, this whole time sitting here, not once have I worried about getting bit. I don't care where she puts her head. She's licking me in the lips, licking me in the nose. I was downstairs with my Nile monitor the other day, and he's got like a half a foot long tongue licking me right in the eyeball. So I hope this little bit of discussion right here kind of help folks understand a little bit about how we can work with these animals and why they don't bite us, why we don't have to worry about them eating us or anything like that. Yeah, I know everybody's going to hear the horror stories about, well, I heard about this one in Indonesia that ate this little old lady. Well, you know, things like that can happen. You get a big enough snake, a small enough person, so one of the wild ones, you can have problems. The number of people that have been killed in captivity by the giant snakes is so small. And the last one that I can think of was in Pennsylvania, I think it was. Guy had a rescue. It was an 18-foot retic. And, you know, one thing that we do really focus on teaching people when it comes to handling these guys is the fact that you don't handle a big snake by yourself. Because although they don't have any ill intent, even my snakes, when I take them outside, if they're trying to like hang on to me and scope something out, they've got to hang on with their body. That's the only way they do it. And the only way they do it is by squeezing, you know, securing themselves. And you can run into problems if they do that. And I'd mentioned earlier about the food response. And one of the things that we teach when we're talking about handling and working with our animals and the fact that they're ambush predators and so forth is you really can, even though they don't do much for facial expressions, you can read their body language after a while. And we really focus on that. Like I said, they're ambush predators, so they will lay in wait, and they pick up a heat signature or movement. It can trigger them to strike in a food response because, you know, they only get one shot, so they've got to take advantage of it. They can't chase any prey. I think just about every animal's got more legs than they do. So that instinct never goes away completely. So what we do is we do stuff like tap training and hook training with them, which isn't necessarily training them. It's just using a hook, using something that is in our body to go in and kind of tap them a little bit, get them woke up, get them realizing what's going on. And we can turn that food response off and let them know that it's time to interact. You can actually see their behavior change. You can see them going from having a hot food response, a situation where if you just reached your hand in you'd get bit, into a thinking mode. And that's a really key thing that we teach with these animals. So, you know, there are things that we need to understand about them before we keep them. But understanding those things and working with your animals and gaining their trust, every one of my animals I can sit here just like this and interact with. Now, some of them have got more energy than others and want to run around 100 miles an hour. The bigger snakes, of course, are kind of hard when you've got an animal like this that's trying to go explore and get away from you that weighs 80 pounds, then it's a little bit different conversation. But even still, with my bigger snakes, once I get them out, once I get that food response turned on, they come out of their enclosure, they know me, they trust me, it's all fun. They just get to explore, they get to check stuff out. And see, I can even take her and put my finger right in front of her mouth like that, right around her head. She may not like it, she'll move away from it, but she's not gonna bite me. Okay? I mean, I've got her mouth laying right on my fingertips, and I trust her. There's no way she's gonna bite me. So anyway, guys, like I said, if you found this interesting and you want to see more, we've got a bunch more videos. You know, go ahead, jump on, get subscribed to the channel. We do live streams every Saturday night at 7 o'clock Eastern. After that, we move into an open Zoom call for all of our paid Patreon members, which is really fun. A lot of people can show off their snakes, and we can have different discussions about it, answer questions, help people better their skills with handling the animals and all that stuff. And we all learn something. It's really a lot of fun. And of course, we try and put out about one video a week here, working on some different kind of socialization or handling type thing, or even if it's just a little bit of fun taking them outside and messing around with them. So, really encourage you guys, if you're not familiar with these animals, if you've got a fear for them, hang around, watch a couple of the videos and kind of see how we do this stuff. You may find it interesting. I know we've got a lot of subscribers on here that don't even keep reptiles, and they just like seeing them. And there's a lot of people that have started watching and they're like, man, I had no idea it was like this. It's so cool. And like I said, man, that's why we do it. We go out and we do parks and summer camps and museums, and we do public education stuff where we take the animals out, and big 20-foot snakes and 200-pound tortoises, 6-foot, 7-foot lizards, and let the kids mess around with them and touch them, and everybody's always so fascinated when we do that. So that's one of the reasons why we do this too, is I just really love having the opportunity to share these animals with people and kind of break some of the stigma. Like I said, there's not much better than taking an animal like this and just gaining that trust with them, so you can interact with them and there's nothing to worry about, and you can tell they're comfortable and they're not worried about nothing. I don't think it gets too much more comfortable than this. She's been out for a little while. I think she's ready to go to sleep. So she's just gonna sit there and perch on my finger for a while. But yeah, guys, go ahead, jump down, get subscribed to the channel, jump down to comments, hit me with any questions you got. I'm gonna start trying to do a lot more videos that are kind of question related, responding to some of the comments and stuff that we get, and maybe try and do those a little bit more frequently. So you guys have an outstanding night. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you next time on Intrepid Exotics.